Well, good afternoon again. Please continue to eat as we get started with the program. We're pleased to have you here today and hope that you'll enjoy today's program as well as the Chief Justice's address. I'd like to begin by introducing your Missouri Bar leaders, so please wave or stand as I introduce you. John Gunn, immediate past president of the Missouri Bar. Lauren Tucker McCubbin, president-elect of the Missouri Bar. And as I keep referring to Lauren, the very soon to be president of the Missouri Bar. Megan Phillips, vice president of the Missouri Bar. Misha Buford Epps, executive director, who also serves as secretary of the Missouri Bar. Betsy Aubuchon, who is clerk of the Supreme Court of Missouri and who also serves as treasurer of the Missouri Bar. And Chris Danduran, chair of the Young Lawyers section. Chris? I'd now ask immediate past President John Gunn to come forward and give thanks so that we may take a moment in our time together at the annual meeting to reflect on the many things we as individuals and as a profession can be thankful for. John?
Thank you, Mr. President. As we gather today from all parts of Missouri with friends, new and old, who have diverse backgrounds, interests, and motivations, may we be reminded that we should never lose sight that we share much common ground, that we must take great care in using the gifts of our training, knowledge, understanding, experience, and abilities, that we must be honest and ethical in all of our dealings, that we should manifest empathy and compassion at all times, that we should continually strive to further the rule of law and the administration of justice, to honor our oath of admission to serve with consideration for the defenseless and oppressed through our actions and through our mutual support of the legal community, and to give thanks both today and in the future.
And now, if we would, let's take one moment as we're giving thanks to give thanks to God for the food that we've eaten and to remember those who have passed or who aren't able to join us since we last gathered 3 years ago. Thank you. I'd also like to express gratitude on behalf of the bar to the sponsors of today's luncheon. Our platinum level sponsor is the Bar Plan. Gold level sponsors, the Limbaugh Firm and Polsonelli PC, and silver level sponsors, Gilmore and Bell PC, Hush Blackwell, and Spencer Fain. We could not host the Missouri Bar annual meeting without the help of our sponsors, and we are grateful to all of the sponsors for this year's meeting for their support. These firms and organizations will be recognized on the video screens and elsewhere throughout the annual meeting, and I encourage you to acknowledge their generosity as you may have the opportunity to do so in person. I would like to recognize those members of the Supreme Court who are here today. Missouri lawyers have long benefited from the bar's cooperative relationship with the court and its individual members. We very much appreciate the court's invitations for Missouri lawyers to provide feedback on shaping the practice of law and the court's rules aimed at ensuring the people of Missouri receive the quality legal services they deserve. It's also been a particular honor and privilege to work closely with the court during this past year, and I thank you. So would the members of the court in attendance please wave or stand and be recognized. We look forward to hearing from Chief Justice Wilson shortly. I now call your attention to the co-chairs of this year's annual meeting planning committee, Joe Blanton, Steve Garner, and Judge Nancy Rawmeyer. An event of this size, held during the course of several days, does not come together without a great deal of deliberation, advanced planning, and effort. Our co-chairs have done an outstanding job of leading the dynamic Planning Committee to bring us back together in person and in tandem with the Judicial Conference. And we're very grateful for the time and commitment they and all members of the Planning Committee have offered in fulfilling that role. Would the members of the Planning Committee who are here today please stand and be recognized? Stand up. Thank you all for your work. Next, we recognize those members of the bar who have attained or will attain this year the status of senior counselor. This is a distinction reserved for those members of the bar who have been in practice for 50 years or who have attained the age of 75 years. The names of this year's senior counselors are featured on the screens. Originally, my friend Steve Taylor from Sykeston was going to be delivering remarks on behalf of this year's senior counselors. Unfortunately, Steve was not able to join us today, feeling a bit under the weather, and so we've got a wonderful pinch hitter today by the name of Larry Tucker. Larry's former bar president, and who's a member of this year's senior counselor staff, senior counselors, and we're thrilled to death that Larry has agreed to step in and deliver remarks on behalf of his group of senior counselors. Larry.
Thank you, President Gunn. It's a pleasure to be here because I've been tasked with the role of celebrating senior counselors. And since I am one, I'm going to enjoy this celebration as much as I can. One of the first things I thought about when I was told just a few minutes ago that I'd be making this speech was this. So much has changed, and yet so much has remained the same. In the 50 years that we've been practicing, we've seen enormous change in our profession and in the world at large. 50 years ago, looking back, we were in the middle of a Vietnam War and the strong anti-war protests. We were seeing significant and rapid social change. In the law schools, we were actually beginning to see change too. Very incremental, very slow, but the profession was moving from its long history of being an exclusively male, white profession into a more diverse operation. In my law school class, very progressive school that I went to, there was 15% were female. Now today, that percentage is somewhat higher to our benefit. So much has changed, but also so much has stayed the same. As we were admitted to the bar in 1972, we took a long oath, a lot longer, I think, than is given today, but the sentiments are exactly the same. We were asked to join a noble profession and to act nobly as though a member of that profession. We were asked to remember the poor, remember those in need. We were asked to not put money ahead of principle. We were asked to try our very best to improve the administration of justice. And I can say with complete confidence, the senior counselors sitting here today, and those you see listed on this board today, have all given their very best efforts to do just that. So much has changed, but so much has remained the same. One of the things that's remained the same is we still have the needs that we had in 1972 to make the access to justice more equitable, more fair, more reasonable. We still have that. We worked hard for 50 years trying to make that better, and I think we made progress, but there's still work to be done. In looking at my fellow senior counselors, I'm in awe. These are folks who have been judges, are judges, who've been prosecutors, who've led their local communities. That's where we've done a lot of our best work as the members of the school board, members of the city council, member of the planning and zoning board, where we were asked to be leaders in the community and we stepped up. And in so doing, we exemplified the values that we pledged when we took that oath. Recently, I had the opportunity to think a little more about what we've accomplished, as you can imagine, coming to this point in my life. And I'm very proud of what we as a group have done. But I want to make sure we all know the work's not finished. We're still challenged as we were then to act ethically, to act faithfully, to act with kindness and civility. And we're also challenged to continue to seek justice. I'm so proud of my fellow senior counselors who've done that. I'm so proud of the Missouri Bar because I know that's their commitment for the future going forward. One last thing. I'm somewhat of a history buff, and as my children will tell you, I've dragged them through a lot of museums, a lot of battlefields, none of which they wanted to see. Well, one of the things I recently came across was I came across a coin that was issued right after the end of the Revolutionary War. It was a sample coin. It was being tested to see if it could go into general circulation. It was like a penny, and it had nothing distinct about its design of that era. But on the rim of the coin were etched these words: "To be esteemed, be useful." I think that's exactly what we should be thinking our call should be. And I think for the senior counselors, I'm proud to say we have been, and we hope to be again, and will in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Larry, for those comments. And I'd ask that all members of this year's class of senior counselors, would you please stand and be recognized? I would like to invite all of our senior counselors together for photographs in this room immediately following the luncheon. Don't go away. So as I was listening to Larry speak, he reminded me, and likely you as well, of the incredible examples of professionalism and service of all of these legal legends. As this year's class of senior counselors so clearly illustrates, service to those in need isn't merely a professional obligation. It's also our innate calling as problem solvers and human beings. That is why I'm particularly proud to draw your attention to the Missouri Bar's Pro Bono Wall of Fame. Those lawyers who voluntarily report at least 40 hours of pro bono work during a calendar year are recognized through our Pro Bono Wall of Fame, which is located on the Bar's website. The names of those appearing on our Wall of Fame will also be posted at various times throughout the annual meeting, and those individuals who are in attendance at this year's meeting have a commemorative ribbon on their name badges calling attention to their achievement. I know that all of you do great work to better serve your clients and your communities, and I encourage you to continue those efforts. As a profession and as individuals, we have the important responsibility of protecting the rights, property, and lives of our fellow citizens. Please visit our website to learn more about how we can work together through our unified bar efforts to better serve our clients and our communities. I now ask for your help to recognize a judge from Southwest Missouri who was honored earlier this morning at the Judicial Conference Awards Breakfast. At that event, I had the privilege of presenting the Theodore McMillian Judicial Excellence Award to Judge Joe Hensley for his integrity and leadership in the courtroom. This award was created by the Board of Governors to recognize jurists who inspire other members of the judiciary through their integrity and leadership to help advance the administration of justice and provide outstanding public and community services to Missouri residents. Judge Hensley is a Jasper County Associate Circuit Judge, and he serves as the 29th Circuit's presiding juvenile court judge. And prior to serving on the bench, he practiced in civil litigation and adoptions. Judge Hensley graduated from the University of Missouri School of Law and was admitted to the Missouri Bar in 1998. He told me it's important for lawyers to remember that every case is important to the people involved. He reminds us that as lawyers and judges, we are charged with an awesome responsibility of unraveling complex issues in our communities and it is a privilege to be able to use our talent and training to do so. Part of that unraveling involves explaining the law to citizens, which can help increase trust in the judicial system. In fact, Judge Hensley encourages new judges to justify their difficult decisions in their writings so that the parties will understand that judgments are not rendered arbitrarily. And although these explanations may open up grounds for reversal, he believes, quote, "It is a fair trade for providing justice and closure to those involved while strengthening the public's confidence in the judicial system." Judge Hensley is a shining example of the highly qualified and compassionate judges who work daily to help improve the lives of Missouri citizens. Judge Hensley, would you please stand and be recognized? It is now my pleasure to present the President's Awards. These awards are bestowed annually by choice of the President to those who have made significant contributions to the bar during the past year or over the course of several years. The two recipients of this year's President's Awards more than meet that standard. I am recognizing W. Dudley McCarter and Scott Vincent for their commitment to educating lawyers through their Journal of Missouri Bar columns. I believe sharing knowledge with others through writing is a special gift, and doing so for 24 years, as Scott and Dudley have done, is phenomenal. As an aside, I've done it for 12 months. I'm happy to pass that off to Lauren. These guys have done it for 24 years. Dudley McCarter, as many of you know, is a founding member of Bear, McCarter, Potter, Neely, and Hyde in St. Louis and a past president of the Missouri Bar. A graduate of the University of Missouri School of Law and ardent Mizzou Tigers fan, he was admitted to the Missouri Bar in 1975. He's also a past recipient of the Missouri Bar Foundation's Purcell Professionalism Award, Spurgeon Smithson Award, and the W. Oliver Rash Award for Legal Writing. Dudley writes The Flag, which is a column in the Journal that summarizes 4 to 6 recent court decisions that are relevant and important to practicing Missouri lawyers. The Flag has been a staple in the Journal since 1958, and McCarter took over writing the columns in 1998. Dudley's firm grasp on the legal landscape has allowed him to identify and relay important court decisions to his peers. Through the Flag, Dudley has offered concise, timely updates for lawyers in a way that's both informative and easy to digest. It is clear that Dudley's passion for the practice drives him to want to help others, and he views the Flag columns as a way to help lawyers even better serve their clients. Unfortunately, Dudley was not able to join us today as he had a long-planned pre-COVID trip that happened to occur during this year's meeting. But I hope that those of you who know Dudley, when you see him, please congratulate him and thank him for his long service and ask him to continue doing it, by the way, for years in the future. The other award goes to Scott Vincent, who's a founding member of Vincent Law in Kansas City. Graduate of the University of Kansas School of Law, he was admitted to the Missouri Bar in 1991. Scott is known for his longstanding journal column, Taxes in Your Practice, where he highlights tax-related decisions and advice from the IRS and rulings from the U.S. Tax Court that impact Missouri lawyers. Taxes in Your Practice has evolved since its debut in the Journal in 1959, and Scott took over writing the column in 1998, coincidentally just a couple of months after Dudley took over writing the Flag. Scott has a wealth of knowledge in tax law. By honing in on relevant changes and seasonal needs, Scott has continuously provided Journal readers practical, clear tips for navigating and planning for tax matters. Scott says he enjoys hearing from and assisting Missouri lawyers who have tax questions, particularly when they relate to his columns. He also told me that, quote, Taxes in Your Practice helps him consistently participate in the bar while also supporting lawyers. Unfortunately, Scott also was not able to join us because of a prior commitment, but again, please reach out to him if you know him and express our thanks. So we appreciate both of them and their long-term service to the Missouri Bar and to the Journal of the Missouri Bar. Well, my term as president of the Missouri Bar will conclude at the end of the annual meeting tomorrow. It's been a tremendous honor to serve this profession. I want to thank my family, some of whom are here attending these events with me, my brother and sister-in-law David and Beth Grimm, both Texas lawyers and graduates of SMU Law School, my brother Mark, who's a lawyer with Gilmore and Bell in St. Louis, and his wife Julie. We want to thank them for being here and joining us today. Unfortunately, my mom was not able to make it. Some of you remember her from bar meetings past, and she would have liked to be in here but was not able to. But I also want to express special thanks to my wife Angie, who's in front of me, and her support this past year has been phenomenal. She's attended lots and lots of events with me. She's had a lot of great ideas, person, of course, to bounce things off of, and she's provided a valuable assistance during my year as president. So thank you all for coming today. I also want to thank a number of the lawyers from the Limbaugh firm in Cape who are here today, and appreciate you all coming and joining us today. That, of course, includes Steve Limbaugh Sr., past president of the Missouri Bar, who was bar president in 1982, 1983. So thank you all for coming and joining us as well. Appreciate that. Of course, two former members of our firm happen to be here as well. Also, Chris Limbaugh, who's now an associate circuit judge in Cole County, and of course his dad, Steve, his mom and dad. Steve was a member of the firm, but Steve and Marcia, you know, Steve's a federal district judge in Cape, having attained senior status now. It might not work as much, but we appreciate them being here as well. Steve, Marcia, thank you all for coming as well. So as I reflect on the past year, I'm reminded that life is about the relationships that we establish with others, and that relationships includes our families, our friends, and our colleagues. And those relationships really define who we are and what we're about. The last in-person annual meeting of the Missouri Bar occurred 3 years ago in Branson, Missouri. Many of you were here at that time, and like you, I've missed not having an annual meeting during the past couple of years, and I'm so happy that we're able to get together in person again this year. Of course, when we met in Branson, nobody could have predicted the upheaval in our lives that occurred during 2020 and 2021. Lawyers, judges, court personnel, and so many others did extraordinary work in those uncertain times. Past bar presidents Tom Bender and John Gunn, like leaders of other organizations, did their best to improvise and adapt to the hand that they were dealt. And they did outstanding work. They didn't get to stand up here in kind of this little swan song that I'm getting to do today. So please take a moment and help me express thanks to John and to Tom for the work that they did during those challenging times. During this past year, I've had the privilege of meeting with newly admitted lawyers who we'll look to in the future to lead our law practices, our courts, and our bar. I, along with other bar officers, have met with many of our state legislators, and we've developed some very good relationships. We really do appreciate their work and want to continue to work with the legislature to improve the lives of Missouri citizens. I've also met and built relationships with lawyers who work day in and day out to not only help their clients, but to help their communities. A few moments ago, we showed the names of lawyers on our pro bono wall of fame. And while we're pleased to honor those on this list, we recognize that many other lawyers don't seek recognition for the volunteer work that they do. Yet they are in their communities every day, working day in and day out to try to improve their communities across our great state. As Larry Tucker mentioned, maybe it's through service on a school board, city council, library board, perhaps reading books once a week to second graders. Don't ever underestimate the service that you're providing or the impact it may be having on other people. There are countless examples, and as we age, we hear those. There are countless examples of seemingly small gestures, comments, or actions that greatly affect the lives of others. So regardless of the role that you're playing, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. It has now come the time for our next bar leader to take the oath of office. So I'm going to call upon the Honorable Patricia Breckenridge, the Supreme Court of Missouri, to come forward and administer the oath of office to my good friend, President-elect Lauren Tucker McCubbin, and assisting Judge Breckenridge will be Lauren's husband, Gabe. Judge, Lauren.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Lauren Tucker McCubbin,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the bylaws of the Missouri Bar,
and the bylaws of the Missouri Bar,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of President of the Missouri Bar
the duties of President of the Missouri Bar
to the best of my skills and abilities,
to the best of my skills and abilities,
by promoting service to the people of Missouri,
by promoting service to the people of Missouri,
enhancement of the legal profession,
enhancement of the legal profession,
and improvement of the administration of justice.
and improvement of the administration of justice.
So help me God.
So help me God. Some hard acts to follow between past president, almost past president Grimm and my own father. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Until 1956, this was the official motto of the United States. When it was adopted by the founders in 1776, the phrase reflected a determination to assemble a single unified nation from a collection of states. But I suggest to you that this phrase reflects a fundamental truth about all of us. We are stronger and more resilient together than we are apart. Together, we flourish. The Missouri Bar is a robust body of 30,750 lawyers, each with individual backstories, practices, and perspectives. Our Board of Governors is comprised of 45 lawyers with widely varying experiences and ideas. One of the things I love the most about serving in leadership of the Missouri Bar is that together we serve all of our members. We value each other's unique contributions as we work toward our unified goal of helping Missouri lawyers even better serve their clients and communities while also improving the profession, the law, and the administration of justice on behalf of all Missourians. The pandemic has made many things clear. We are all connected. We need each other. We can accomplish difficult tasks, and we are at our best when we work together toward a common goal. Now that we have more opportunities to gather together safely as we have today, we are reminded of how valuable it is to have many voices contributing to a collective goal. You, as Missouri lawyers, are part of a special community. You are uniquely qualified to help others. You ensure access to justice. You help people avoid disagreements or resolve them. You help businesses grow, and you protect consumers from unfair or unsafe practices. You help Missourians understand how the system of justice works, and you empower them to participate in it. In doing this, we are collectively bonded further by our code of professional conduct and the social contract we entered into when we took our oath. While our backgrounds, practices, and experiences vary widely, which is one of our greatest strengths, we are united in our ability and commitment to justice, civic education, and service, and we can make the most change and achieve the best results by working together. United, we flourish. I urge you to embrace these words as you connect with longtime peers and perhaps more importantly, make new friends throughout the rest of this meeting. And long after today's event, our bar, as it has since 1944, will continue to help us flourish together by providing us and our communities with resources, points of connection, support, and education. I am honored to serve as the president of this wonderful organization, and I look forward to all the good that we can and will do together to improve the lives of our fellow Missourians. Before I ask John Grimm to join me for his farewell items, I would like to take a moment of personal privilege to thank my family, several of whom are here today, my husband Gabe and my children, and my parents Larry and Sylvia, and my sister Emily and her husband Eric. I'd also like to thank my fellow lawyers at Polsinelli, many of whom are also here today. I am so grateful to work at a firm that is so supportive of its attorneys' involvement in the community and in the bar. Finally, thank you to my fellow board members who have entrusted me with this amazing honor and responsibility of serving as the president of the Missouri Bar. Now it is my honor to ask John Grimm, who is less than 24 hours away from the esteemed title of immediate past president, to please join me. You thought you could get away.
I was.
John has been an excellent president, as we all knew that he would be. He has built significantly upon important and ongoing projects of the bar, including efforts to support lawyer well-being and the increased retention and advancement of lawyers of color. He has educated lawyers and citizens alike about our state's 82-year legacy of the Missouri Nonpartisan Court Plan, and in producing that plan's production of highly qualified judges in the least political way. And I commend his leadership in helping us rebuild meaningful opportunities like today to meet in person in a safe way as we continue to navigate the pandemic. John, I am so proud to present to you a plaque, which is just over there, that I will grab, on behalf of the Board of Governors, as a token of our gratitude to your dedicated service. Look, it's the minute it switches over, he's got to do his heavy lifting. It is. You guys, please join me in recognizing John Grimm's wonderful leadership.
That's all right. That's nice. So this morning, Dennis Tilson, thank you so much. And you're introducing Chief, right?
I am. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce the Honorable Paul Wilson, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Missouri. Justice Wilson previously served as a circuit judge in Cole County and was later appointed and retained as a judge of the Supreme Court of Missouri. His prior employment included private practice and the head of litigation in the Missouri Attorney General's office. He is a graduate of Drury University here in Springfield and the University of Missouri School of Law. Like me, he is not the first legal leader in his family. Chief Justice Wilson's father, McCormick Wilson, served as Cole County Associate Circuit Judge for many years. He is beginning his second year of his two-term as Chief of Justice, and we are honored that he is here to speak to us today. Please join me in welcoming Chief Justice Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, President McCubbin. Good afternoon. Wow. How nice it is to see all of you again in person. It's terrific. Last year, I delivered this speech online in a video watched around the world by literally tens of viewers. But I've got to say, I miss those days. A coat and tie on top, sweatpants on bottom, an endless number of retakes if I needed it, and a room filled only with me, a couple of board technicians, and Betsy Abashan looking at her watch and signaling me to speed it up. Well, those days are gone now, and we are back to doing this live. That means I have to get this in one take, and you don't get to turn me off or put on the cat filter that your kids or grandkids loaded on your phone. I'm sure we're going to do just fine. A philosopher in ancient Greece once said, "There is nothing permanent except change." 25 centuries later, the 1976 version of A Star is Born put it this way: "Nothing changes but the changes." They were both right. Society is changing, and the rate of that change is increasing every day. And make no mistake, change is stressful. As much as we like to pretend otherwise, the practice of law is not exempt from these changes or the stress they bring. Being a lawyer or a judge has never been easy. We have all the stresses that everyone else has, plus we take on the stresses of our clients and constituents. It's what we do, and it's always been difficult. But now, it's getting harder. Those normal stresses that everyone has, they're on the rise. Running a law practice or managing a courtroom and staff, they're more stressful now than ever before. And so are the stresses we take on from those we serve. And that's not all. We're living in a society that increasingly does not trust institutions or professionals of any stripe. This loss of confidence hurts our profession and the judicial system, but right now, I want you to realize how much it takes a toll on us, individually. All that is to say, if you think the water is rising, if sometimes you feel like you can't touch the bottom even standing on your tippy toes, you're not wrong. It can be hard to know what stress is doing to you, and even harder to admit it. But it's much easier to see the danger signs in others. Suppose I asked each of you to put your heads down and raise a hand if you know a lawyer who has a substance abuse problem, or who is so overwhelmed by stress that they can't seem to take care of themselves or their clients. Suppose I ask you to raise your hand if you know someone who was driven out of our profession by this stress, or worse, someone whose circumstances became so unbearable they ended their life to end their pain. How many hands would be up? Too many. Recent studies confirm what we already know. Young lawyers today are more likely to report levels of stress they believe are unsustainable, and they're more likely than ever to leave the profession because of it. 20% of lawyers in one study screened positive for harmful levels of alcohol consumption. And do you think those lawyers were over-reporting their drinking? More than 1 in every 10 lawyers surveyed had considered suicide. And more than 1% of them had attempted it. 1%. Think about that. I know this is grim. No one wants to talk about these issues, but look around. This is what we get if we don't talk about it. If we continue to pretend that anxiety and depression are things that only happen to somebody else, that only happen to the ones who just can't hack it. There are some real challenges facing our profession today, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. But if we don't start now, and I mean right now, if we don't start taking better care of ourselves and each other, we simply won't be in any shape to take on those challenges. If you love and value what we do and what we represent, then you have to love those who do it. We have to take better care of ourselves and each other. You have a right to expect your legal career will be a meaningful, lifelong expression of your commitment to serving others and to the rule of law. You have a right to expect that this profession will give you a sense of fulfillment that will sustain you through the difficult times. But for too many of us, for too much of the time, neither of these things is true. The stress of this work too often robs us of the joy it should bring. And that stress, for too many of us, poses serious risks to our physical and mental health. So all of us need to start working on this problem with some intentionality. We're lucky to have Ann Chambers, who leads the Missouri Lawyers Assistance Program, or MOLAP. This afternoon, she'll be talking about how we can recognize the warning signs of burnout and other mental health issues, how to spot these red flags in our colleagues and in ourselves. More important, she'll talk about how to make sure we all can get the support we need when we need it. But there's something very simple that we can all do, starting right now. The practice of law used to be a community. Increasingly, however, we're chained to our desks and we just don't see each other very much or for very long. Then the pandemic came along and isolation became a way of life. But the simple truth is, the more isolated we are from each other, the harder it is to take care of each other. We have to build back the legal community. Get to know and care for as many of your colleagues as you can. Get engaged with the Missouri Bar. Join a committee. If you have a local bar association, go. If you don't have one, start one. Find a lawyer you do not know and take them to lunch. Make the health and strength of this profession your personal business. And if you ever realize you're having trouble managing the stresses of life and this profession, please know that you're not alone. You have 30,000 colleagues around this state, and I promise you, every one of them has been where you are at some time or another. Reach out. If you prefer anonymity, call MOLAP anytime, any day. It doesn't matter whether you're in crisis or maybe you just need to talk to someone. It doesn't matter who helps you. It only matters that you get the help you need. If you had a client with a problem you weren't sure how to handle, you wouldn't hesitate to ask another lawyer. I'm asking you to please learn to care as much for yourself as you do for your clients. Otherwise, there's simply no way we'll be able to serve all those who depend on us. Like they tell you when you board an airliner, secure your own oxygen mask before attempting to help others. Or I like the way my grandmother used to put it, you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you're wondering why I'm so adamant about taking better care of ourselves and each other, the answer is simple. The legal profession and the judicial system are headed into real trouble in this country. And we're going to have to be at our very best to fend off the challenges we face. I don't have to tell you, things are rough right now. Every single one of us is a public servant. Whether you're a prosecutor, a public defender, a private practitioner, or a judge, we all serve society. But the society we serve is more divided, more distrustful, more fearful, and more angry than they have been in a long, long time. In the past, one of the reasons society survived rough times like these was the stability of its institutions. And I believe the most important of all those institutions is the judicial system and the rule of law. Picture it this way. Our society is an ocean, and the public are all the boats that sail on it. Some boats are fancy, others barely seaworthy, but everyone sails the same sea. When the storms come, everyone gets tossed about. The poorest boats suffer the most, and they suffer the soonest. But when a big storm rages, and I am telling you, a big one is coming right now, everybody feels it. In that picture, courts and the rule of law are the all-important harbors when seas get rough. The place where truth matters, where reason has its day, and where questions of fact are decided by evidence and not simply by who can shout the loudest and the longest. We don't determine the weather, and we don't get to say where people should sail or even whether they should go to sea at all. That's not our job. We are simply here when they need us. When there are disputes that have to be resolved, and those resolutions have to matter, be final, and have the force and effect of law. In the past, courts were able to serve society so well in stormy times because people trusted them. Courts worked because people believed they worked. The rule of law mattered because people believed it mattered. But that confidence is waning. Right now, we are balanced on a knife's edge, and there is a real risk the public's trust, its confidence, will slip away. And if it goes, if we let it go, there will be no safe harbor when society really needs one. In the past decade, public confidence in the courts and the rule of law has eroded faster than ever before. Last year, for the first time ever, more Americans said they had little or no faith in the court's ability to provide equal justice for all than those who did. The last three words of the Pledge of Allegiance, justice for all, and the public no longer believes in our ability to deliver on that promise. If that doesn't make you a little mad, and more than a little frightened, it should. Why is this happening? The answer is that most people don't have much idea what we do or how we do it, and much of what they think they know is wrong. Whose fault is that? Ours. Period. If we want the public to know what we know, and they have to, for the rule of law to survive and for the judicial system to work, then it is up to us to teach them. We have to educate the public about their justice system, and we have to do it one service club, one classroom, one individual at a time. This has to be our highest priority, because if we don't turn this around, it just isn't going to matter what our other priorities are. But understand that even if the public listens to us, they also watch what we do and how we do it. If lawyers act like truth matters all the time, then society is far more likely to believe their justice system cares about truth as well. If lawyers treat everyone, including each other, with respect and fairly all the time, society is far more likely to believe their justice system does the same. 1,000 civic education programs cannot undo the damage done by a single lawyer who brazenly misuses the judicial system or asserts facts they know are untrue. Everything any of us does, everything we say, and the way we do what we do and say what we say shapes the public's perception of our entire profession and the system we serve. We cannot afford right now to give anything less than our very best all the time. But now, there's a new threat to the public's trust and confidence, a bigger one, and it's far more dangerous than a lack of civic education. The public square is increasingly filled with those, including, to my great shame, more than a few lawyers who are willing to lie to the public, to pour gas on their lack of trust, simply to gain a little short-term popularity. When a bully pushes you, you have to push back. When someone attacks the rule of law and the judicial system on grounds you know are false, you have got to say something. The public might not believe everything we say, at least not at first, but I know you people. And you're a pretty persuasive bunch when you get going. So get going. Don't give up this battle over the public's trust and confidence without a fight. Because I promise you, it's a fight worth fighting. And it's a fight we cannot afford to lose. When I say that we have to defend the rule of law and the justice system, that these institutions are worth fighting for, people sometimes hear the word institution and they think of some great ivory tower, cold, distant, and unchanging. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our justice system is a profoundly human enterprise with all the magnificent qualities and all the foibles that make us human. We simply wouldn't want it any other way. We're not distant. We are literally in the heart of town squares across the state. And our institutions are anything but unchanging. One of the most fundamental duties lawyers and judges have is to strive continually to improve the law and the delivery of justice in our courts. When we do that, more importantly, when the public sees us do that, it enhances the rule of law and the public's trust and confidence in what we do. Right now, we are working to expand drug courts, veterans courts, and other problem-solving courts to help people rebuild their lives and their families. We are working to find and eliminate systemic and implicit bias, to build a judiciary as diverse as the people we serve, and to resolve civil cases faster and less expensively. And we're making courts more accessible and more transparent, by increasing the use of virtual proceedings and by making public court documents that belong to them, and we're making them public anytime, anywhere over the web. These steps and many more are not just aimed at making courts better. They're aimed at increasing the public's trust and confidence in those courts, because that trust is essential if we are to preserve our justice system and the rule of law. It is essential if we are to be here when the public needs us, especially when the seas get rough. Institutions don't survive because they're institutions. They survive because the people who serve in them are committed to making them survive. For example, the Ukrainian Constitution, like ours here in Missouri, requires courts to remain open and accessible. Right this second, Ukrainian judges, lawyers, and court staff are doing everything they can, including taking up arms, to keep their courts open and ensure access to justice, even in the middle of a war. They are willing to fight, to defend the rule of law, because they know how much they have to lose if they don't. But history, as it usually does, provides cautionary tales as well. In 1930s Germany, the judiciary failed in its duty. They were told to render decisions more in keeping with the prevailing will rather than the law, and they did. So, bit by bit, German judges and German lawyers followed the mob down into the worst hell that anyone has ever imagined. It took a decade and tens of millions of lives to pick up the pieces when an independent judiciary stopped being independent and stopped being judicial. I hope and pray I hope and I pray that we are never tested like the lawyers and judges in Germany or Ukraine. But if we are, which path will we choose? Everyone in this room knows the line from Henry VI, Part 2, where Dick the Butcher says, the first thing we do, we got to kill all the lawyers. That line has spawned 1 million lawyer jokes since Shakespeare wrote it 430 years ago. But it also conveys a serious message about the role of lawyers and courts in preserving liberty and the rule of law. But what worries me about that quote is that it dramatically exaggerates what needs to happen to do away with the rule of law. Nobody needs to kill all the lawyers. All that needs to happen is for the lawyers and the judges to do nothing. I don't think that will happen. We have some work ahead of us, that's true, but I know for a fact that the people in this room and all of our colleagues around the state are up to the task. What makes me so confident about the future is the examples we have to follow. We are privileged to work in a profession that has more than its share of heroes. Many of them are in this room right now. People who day by day have the heart and the courage to do the little things right, even when no one is looking, and to do the big things right, even when the whole world is watching. I want to focus on two of those heroes before I go. The first is Alan Pratzel. Alan has been our chief disciplinary counsel since when, Alan? The Eisenhower administration? All he's done is to devote his life to protecting the public and the integrity of our profession by teaching generations of lawyers to know and follow the rules of professional conduct. Alan is retiring this fall, and I hope he knows how much better our profession is for his having played such an important role in it. Friends, please help me recognize Alan Pratzel now. Finally, I want to talk about a person who, if you have any doubt about the future of the profession or the vital work we do, just spend about 10 seconds in his presence and you will leave energized and enthusiastic. There are some lawyers whose extraordinary skill and intellect are so inspiring, they make the rest of us want to be better lawyers. And there are some people whose extraordinary character and zest for life are so inspiring they make the rest of us want to be better people. But I don't know anyone who has combined those two traits the way Marcy Graham does. Please help me recognize him now. I called Marcy a couple of weeks ago and I explained the court has an award it gives each year to lawyers who have rendered extraordinary service to the bar and the judiciary. I told him that the court had decided to rename this award in his honor, and that the very first Maurice B. Graham Award would be presented this morning to John Grimm, the outgoing president of the Missouri Bar. So I was on the phone with Marcy, and I tried to tell him how much I admired him and how long I had watched what he did and respected how he did it. And I got a little choked up. And then I felt a little silly because I thought there's no way he knows how great an influence he's had on me or my life as a lawyer. That's because Marcy Graham is a great person, and great people never think they're great, and they never know how many people they've touched or how deeply. But much more important than being a great person, Marcy Graham is a good person. He has spent his life caring about this profession and every single lawyer in it, including every one of you, whether you knew it or not. So as we leave here today, I'd like all of us to be a little more like Alan and Marcy. We can all be better teachers and better people. And if we're not sure how to go about it, we have only to look at their example. Because this is my last annual meeting as Chief Justice, I want to take this opportunity to tell you what a privilege it is to serve on this court and how much I love and respect my colleagues with whom I share that privilege. Next year, we'll have a new chief, and two of our friends will move on. After all, change is the only constant. but the justice system and the rule of law will go on. They have to, not because of any particular judge or court, but because of all of you and all that you do. Never lose sight of how incredibly important you are and how important what you do is. Think how incredible the chance you have to serve others is, and how much responsibility comes with that opportunity. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And together, we can take care of the profession we love. Smooth sailing to all of you. Thank you.
What an inspiration. Thank you, Judge, for those wonderful comments. Great way to end the opening luncheon. I want to thank you for attending today's luncheon. I encourage you to take advantage of the educational programming that we have this afternoon. I can't wait to see you tonight at the Best of Missouri reception, where you have a chance to participate in a home run hitting contest. And look forward to seeing you, everybody there over at Hammons Field. I want to remind our senior counselors to please wait around outside in the lobby for a photo opportunity. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity to have been bar president this past year. Have a great rest of the conference.